All right, Nick. This is not deja vu, but it's as close as it comes. It's as close as it gets. 16-6. This is going to be a show. This is going to be a show. This is why you get paid the big bucks. This is why you get paid the big bucks right here to do shows like tonight. You know, anyone can do a show during a 12-game winning streak. Anybody can do that. It's nights like tonight that we provide a show that you walk home, probably not walk home. You walk back to your bedroom or you go to sleep. Whatever you do when the show's over, you're going to go back and you say to yourself, "That wasn't a terrible show. The game was much worse than the show." That's my goal. But anyways, if you're just now tuning in and you had your head buried in sand, the Cubs are leading 16-6.
There's already 2 outs.
And there's 2 outs. I actually, even for whatever reason, I'm not sure why I did this. I'm not really sure why I did, but I did pull up the old Fubo. I did turn the game on. I thought about just letting it rip, Nick, and not even watching the last inning, but I didn't want to miss anything.
Man, already getting crushed in the chat. I haven't even said a word yet, guys.
I think Kirby, I think you should just not look at the chat for a little while.
I probably should.
I think that you should do that. I think that's actually the smart thing to do.
I mean, you got to at least crush me once I say something. Like, give me a chance.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. I'll say something stupid.
No, I mean, I don't know if you will. I'm not sure if you will say something stupid. I think we just should wait until the show and we'll get into it. Because there's... Home plate umpire has been pretty good tonight.
I haven't noticed, to be honest.
I have. I've been watching. He's pretty good. He's done a good job. He missed one Buck Farmer pitch. That was a big pitch.
Buck Farmer pitched in this game?
Buck Farmer pitched in this game.
I'm just kidding.
I know you are. Yeah.
I got the whole recap. Don't
pitched
worry.
2 innings.
Or worry.
Well, he tried to pitch 2 innings. It's a little bit of a difference. I'll tell you what, you guys are elite, man. This is an elite group. Elite community is what this is right now. The fact that there's 158 people in here watching this show right now, based off the way things have gone, I mean, that's true. That's true loyalty, man. There's people that are in weddings that aren't as loyal as this. Not weddings, marriages. What am I trying to say? Same
Tough
thing.
scene all around.
Yeah, it's been a bad night. I went hard in the paint for about 15, 20 minutes on Twitter just because why not? Sometimes it's fun. Or not Twitter, X.
That's the only downside of doing a show is I kind of have to like stay on Twitter. These games back in the past, I would just close that bad boy down for the night.
You don't have to. I don't feel like you have to just because of this show. I mean, you might want to have a pulse of the nation, but at the same time, I mean, you turn it off.
I don't want to miss anything from any, writers or anything, I just need to maybe make a list of the writers. And
they do
focus on the list.
They do have lists. They do have that. That's
block
the thing.
Everything else out.
Yeah, just don't click the notification bell, Nick. Fraley's not happy about that one.
They're gonna do this thing where they drag this out for another hour.
Yeah,
again?
I don't know. Let's not do that, please. Hopefully you're 2 pitches ahead of me. So if Fraley grounds out, then I know.
I haven't even seen it, but I had game open and it's over.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I've seen enough.
Well, if that's the case, I really don't need to see it. I'm gonna exit out of the old cable, and we are gonna do a show. And you know what? When you say you're gonna do them all, you got to do them all. And when you do them all, you got to run the intro, even though it doesn't feel right. You still got to run the intro. So here we go.
High drive, left center field, racing back to the World Bourgeois. The Reds are National League Central Division champions. In the air, left center field. Did he? He did! Gold glove, slow to first, and Homer failing for the second time in his major league career. Toss the nose. Oh, gosh. Are you kidding me? Holy Moses, the second player in major league history to hit 7 home runs in the first 10 games. In the air, and the Reds win it. What a dream beginning to the career of Jay Bruce.
All right, Nick. Tough one. A tough one. I'm not even really sure there's a word in the vocabulary that would do justice of what we've witnessed the last two nights. Abysmal is perhaps the closest thing I can come to it as fast as my brain will calculate. But 16-6, the Reds are losers again to the team from the north side of Chicago. They are now back to 3 games, I believe, behind the Cincinnati Reds. And there's a chance, believe it or not, Nick, that the Reds could win tomorrow. I do want to remind everyone before we get into all this, and I know at times it may become negative, it may become toxic, it may become whatever term you want to use. But the reality is that I do want to remind everyone, before we get this show started, I told myself I was going to do this, that if the Reds were to win tomorrow, that it was a series split, nothing changes, and you move on. Even though it feels ridiculous to say that and gross, I do want to get that out of the way. Nick, I'm not sure where you want to start, but I'm going to let you lead us into this show.
Yeah, it was an ugly one tonight. I mean, I felt like last night was a little bit like easier to stomach, right? Like you just did one of those nights you just don't have it. You just get shelled. Tonight, it's a lot tougher, man. You get up 5-2 and it was just a lot of just either mental mistakes or just bad errors and just this one stings. But at the end of the day, you got a chance to win the series tomorrow, and you win tomorrow, and it I think pretty much washes it away. Because
it does.
We did say going to this, you win 2 of 4. Hey, you know what? That win on Monday, man, it was huge. They won that 1-run game, and man, if you didn't win that, then you're really in an uphill battle right now. But yeah, look, it stinks. It sucks. It was an ugly game. There's not really a whole lot more to say than that. It's but it's 1 of 162. Last 2 are 2 of 162. So
that is true. Let's do a box score recap, and then let's get into it, because I know the chat's popping. I see what they're saying. I think that there's some reason to be in agreement with some things. I think there's also some things that we can kind of rebuttal, at least discuss, and I'm sure that me and you probably disagree on a few things, and that's okay. So we'll talk about that right after this, though, the box score recap.
All right, game 3 of 4 at Wrigley Field. Wind blowing out, and boy, was it ever blowing out as this game got going. Top of the first, Kevin Newman ripped a single almost 100 miles an hour off the bat to get the game started. And then with 2 outs, Spencer Steer hit his team-high 16th home run just into the left center field basket. That made it 2-0 Reds. Top of the second, Joey Votto, who came in just 1 for his last 20 against left-handed pitching, came in just 1 for 13 in his career against Drew Smyly. Absolutely crushed 421-foot solo home run to center field. That made it 3-0. Bottom of the third, Christopher Morel hit a 2-run home run off the dome of a Cubs fan in the bleachers. That made it 3-2 Reds. Top of the fourth, Christian Encarnacion Strand ripped a double down the line. Then Joey Votto hit his second home run of the night. That put the Reds up 5-2. It was Votto's 50th career home run against the Reds. Votto joins Frank Robinson and Johnny Bench as the only Reds to hit 50 home runs against the Cubs. But unfortunately, that was where the fun ended for the night. In the top of the fifth, Brandon Williams had walked the leadoff hitter. Did get a strikeout, but then allowed a single. Bell pulled him. I'm sure that'll be a topic of conversation tonight. Buck Farmer gave up a double and then 2 runs in the inning, tied at 5. Farmer came back out next inning, gave up the first 2 runners on base. Sims came in, tried to put out that fire. He couldn't. 3 runs scored on his watch. It was 8-5. Alex Young came in. And then it really got ugly with 2 outs, runners on second, third. A ball was hit weakly to Nick Senzel playing third base tonight. He had all the time in the world, and for some reason he rushed the throw. Votto couldn't bail him out. 2 more runs scored. It was 10-5. TJ Friedl came off the bench, hit a solo home run in the 7th, did make it 10-6 at that point. But the Cubs showed no mercy. The Reds defense showed no mercy. Reds committed 4 errors on the night. Luke Maley pitched again at some point. Reds lose 16-6. Brewers did lose, though, earlier today on a Devin Williams blown save. They also lost on an error. They've now lost 5 of 6 in sweeping the Reds, which has kept the Reds a half game up in the NL Central. As mentioned, the Cubs now 3 games back.
Everything you said in that box score recap, I can confirm I did see and I did watch. Let's start with Williamson really fast before we get into this lineup and defense that might take pretty much the rest of this show. I thought Williamson was pretty good tonight. I know people might actually think that that's blasphemy and, he couldn't get out of the 5th. Well, he couldn't get out of the 5th because his manager took him out of the game. That's part of it. And the other part of it is it's really tough to get out of innings when you got to get 4 or 5 outs at times. And I thought for the most part, Williamson wasn't the benefactor of a couple early calls, but he overcame them regardless. I don't know where I am with Williamson, but I would be hesitant to say that he isn't going to be a pretty serviceable starter and or serviceable arm out of the pen in a middle reliever type role at some point in his career. He's maybe I'm too soft on these guys. Perhaps you tell me I'm too soft, chat, but I genuinely watched this game and I didn't for 1 second think that Williamson was a problem. Nick, I don't know how you felt about him specifically, but next time his name's called to get the ball, I'll have confidence that he's going to deliver at least a chance for this Reds team to win.
He struck out a career-high 7 batters tonight. I know it's probably weird in a game where he didn't last all that long, but he's made some improvements. The biggest flaw of his night was walking the leadoff batter in the 5th inning. I think it was his last inning. That's kind of been the one thing that's held him back the most. It hasn't been as bad at the major league level as it was in the minors. But yeah, I think he's a solid pitcher. I didn't have an issue with David Bell pulling him. Christopher Morel absolutely destroys left-handed pitching. And if you don't believe me, you don't believe the splits, look at where David Ross bats Christopher Morel against right-handed pitching versus where he bats him against left-handed pitching. It didn't work out.
I have one thing to that though. And I'm doing my best to try to be as rational and level-headed and think through a lot of this stuff, because when you're on air and you're live, you say things that perhaps at times you regret that you said because you were just in the moment. But at what point do you start to rationalize and think through the bigger picture of what this is as a team? The bullpen, Nick, cannot keep getting 4 and 5 inning wins as a bullpen. They can't, or not even wins, just holds. They can't do it. They've done it almost all year long. I don't know how many pitches he was exactly, but he was south of, was he south of 80 pitches?
77.
Nick, he's at 77 pitches. He's at 77 pitches. And listen, I'm on your side with this David Bell thing. I really am. I think that it's overreactionary right now to say that David Bell sucks. I think it's overreactionary right now to be like, I can't stand him. He's a terrible in-game manager, et cetera, et cetera. I think, though, in my opinion, David Bell unfortunately didn't have his best night tonight in 2 ways. I don't think the starting lineup was what I would have preferred. I would have liked to at least I'm sorry, but I'm playing Ellie De La Cruz. I just am. I don't give a damn about his offensive production at the plate right now, because what you get on the other side of the ball and what you get if he does get on base at any moment is so valuable. No one else on this team can come even close to providing the value he provides outside of what he gives you at the plate. And in meaningful baseball games, and these are all meaningful, you can say every game in the entire year for the rest of the way is meaningful, but let me tell you something. Games against the Cubs and games against the Brewers are ultimate. They're premium. They should be treated like different. They should be treated differently. And like it or not, for the second straight night, and I'm not trying to jump into the lineup at defense right now. I'm going to reel it back and make sure we stick to this pitching thing. David Bell just didn't have his best night, and for me, I'm not pulling a guy at 77 pitches when my bullpen has been asked to do what they've done all year long. If it would be a lot different for me, Nick, in saying the whole Morel splits thing and all that makes sense. It does make sense from a micro level. I do think that. But I think ultimately, too, you have to manage from a macro level, and you could make the same argument that that's why he actually started most of those guys that he started tonight was because he take a macro level approach. But again, I'm just not taking him out. And I know that that's such a small thing to be critical of, and that's why I'm not super sideways about it. But we can't sit here and complain at the end of the year, Nick, that this bullpen is worn out when we take our starters out at 77 pitches in the fifth inning.
I wouldn't have a problem with Brandon Williamson staying in the game with the purpose of saving your bullpen. But if we're talking about trying to win this game tonight, I think that was the best move. Let's also not forget Christopher Morel hit a 435-foot home run off of Brandon Williamson the time up before. I mean, there was 2 runners on base. It was a 5-3 ball game. So, I mean, David Bell did the exact same thing on Monday with Andrew Abbott. Gets no criticism because it worked. Pulled him, I think, he's four and a third innings. And Andrew Abbott's a better pitcher. And I know he probably didn't look as good as Brendan Williamson did tonight. But he did the exact same thing on Monday, and I didn't see the whole, pile on him. I think it's just because it didn't work tonight.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. Of course, that's part of it. I mean, listen, anytime something doesn't work, the manager's going to get blamed more times than not, whether it's fair or unfair. I'm just saying that, I think David Bell in that moment, yes, he was going after this win tonight. He's like, let's try to win this tonight. And you know what? I don't give a damn. I don't want to say he doesn't care what happens tomorrow, but in a way, he would have been like, we're definitely not throwing our bullpen tomorrow. I'm going to let whoever it is, Luke Weaver, is going to have to go out there and just suck it up. If he's getting absolutely smashed tomorrow, he's throwing 6 innings. And to be fair to Lively, he did the same thing to a small extent. But, I don't know. We'll see. I get what you're saying. I'm just not buying the idea that you continue to take guys out at 77, 80 pitches in the fifth inning and think that the bullpen is going to be able to continue to hold it down. All right. Pitching in general, I actually don't. I think that's the one thing that I actually don't see. I know I'm in agreement with the chat or the general public or the general fan base on a lot of things, Nick. I'm not in a really agreement on the pitching thing. I see everybody screaming and yelling about Nick Krall, about how he needs to go out and get a starter, this pitching staff's given up 30 runs or whatever the number is. Hell, we can do the math. It's 36 runs. They've given up 36 runs in the last 2 games. Well, some of that's Luke Mailey's pitching. Okay, can we be honest? That's part of it. The other part of it is that we can't catch a cold. Like, this defense has been atrocious, and you can't ask pitchers to go out and get 5 outs an inning and think that that's going to work out. I have no problem with the pitching. Maybe a small problem, but I really don't. The defense has just been bad. It's been really bad. I don't know if you want to go to that next or to the lineup, but that's kind of where I'm at. I really don't have a problem with the pitching. Do you? Do you have any issues with the pitching?
No, I mean, no one was replacing Brandon Williamson and Ben Lively.
Right.
So, these were guys that we had to count on either way. So, I think it was a bad night for a couple relievers on top of the defense. It's just, everything's just snowballed the last 2 games. But I can't remember a game this bad defensively. I'm sure there's one out there. But, man, that was brutal. And I felt bad for Senzel. Man, I don't know what he was doing, rushing that throw, that first one, and then I think you tweeted about it. I mean, the second time it clearly was in his head.
Yeah.
Just, man, you're getting your chance to play there, you're getting your chance to play at third base, and just.
I think that leads me to my next point to you, Nick, and I don't know where we're at with this. We got some guys that I'm trying to treat this as if I don't have a loser's mentality, because sometimes I do think that can creep yourself in, and you can tell yourself and you can give yourself excuses all the time that everything's fine and it's okay, and and these types of things are going to happen, whatever. But here's my only thought with where we're at as a team. I just at times, and this isn't me like overreacting, I really do. I just genuinely don't think we're not as good as we maybe think that we are. And the reason I say that is because these guys that we're bringing in consistently and we're expecting consistent things from when there's a left-handed starter are not great, in my opinion, players in general. Like, it'd be one thing if their platoon splits are one way. Like, if you told me, Nick, that, hey, the right fielder is basically he's an adequate Jake Fraley, I would actually say, okay, that's fair. But that's not what it is. It's like, it's I don't know. I mean, Stuart Fairchild, right? And me and you have been on the Stuart Fairchild train. Hand up. I've admitted that I like Stuart Fairchild. But I can at least also admit that Stuart Fairchild is probably going to be nervous in big environments. He's not a veteran. Nick Senzel's going to be nervous probably in big environments. He's not a veteran. These guys are not proven. It's not like we're bringing in, again, I don't, Scott Rowland is a ridiculous example, but that's the kind of guy that comes to mind. Like later in his career, Scott Rowland comes off the bench on a platoon situation and he plays third base, or he's a third base defensive specialist, or he's basically a defensive guy that you bring in towards the end of the games. We don't have those guys. We don't have veterans that you can rely on that are good, that excel in one area. We have a bunch of marginal MLB talent that sits behind our, call it everyday starters, if you want to call it that when they do come in and they play in front of 40,000 people, I just don't trust them. That's my biggest problem with David Bell starting these guys 2 days in a row, is because I don't trust them. Maybe you can tell me, Nick, that they're splits or whatever, but I don't trust Kevin Newman to make big-time plays in a big-time game. Ever. And maybe you could argue with me that this isn't a big-time game in a big-time moment, but I go and I harken back to the same thing I said before. When you're playing the Cubs and you're playing the Brewers, I think it's a big-time game. And I think it's a mistake to play those guys 2 days in a row. And I think that it reared its ugly head that guys that don't get to play a whole lot can be rusty. And I'm not trying to blame them wholeheartedly, because I think it's not fair to Nick Senzel to say he should make every single play. I don't know if it's really fair to say that Kevin Newman should make every play at second base. But here I am, and I expect that because we're playing for the division. So I don't know how you rationalize all that, or you see it, and maybe you're obviously, I know you're a little more on the side of the opposite of me on that, but that's my thought. That's my overall opinion about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Stuart Fairchild, that was a tough ball. I mean,
it was. I agree with that, Nick.
I feel like it was made out to be like, oh my god, he should have made that catch. If he would have made that catch, I feel like it would have been the wow, what a great catch by Stuart Fairchild. It would have been the opposite reaction. I mean, he took a bad route, but I still don't even know if, like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think he just didn't know his environment.
Well, and you have a brick wall too. I don't know. Look, the Reds are in first place and they've been platooning all year. So if we want to lose it after one game, I guess if that's your opinion, I don't think they should bail on it because of that. I don't.
I'm not saying they should bail on it, Nick. I'm not saying they should bail on it, but they got to pick their spots, man. Like, they got to pick their spots. I just don't want Nick Senzel, Kevin Newman, and Stuart Fairchild playing all at the same time. That can't happen. This isn't Jonathan India. I've crushed the guy as much as anybody. I have. But I'm here to tell you that if Jonathan India is healthy, that lineup we see tonight never happens. And what I'm telling you is, in this short period of time without Jonathan India, we have to overextend guys and ask him to do more until he gets back, if that's how we want to treat it. I'm not playing those three guys on the same night. Not doing it.
I think part of it was also wanting to get a couple guys a day off. when the Reds are in a stretch of 13 games in a row. So I think that was more like why Ellie wasn't in the lineup tonight. I think you're picking your spot of when's the best day to give Ellie a day off. And I think you have a valid argument. Okay, save Ellie for Friday against the Nationals. I think that's a valid argument, but you also do have a left-handed pitcher tonight, and we know that Ellie's hasn't proven at this point he's better against left-handed pitching. So I don't know. Maybe they also saw something with Ellie where like, hey, he really needs a day off. I don't know. TJ Friedel's the same case, although it does feel kind of weird when you bring TJ Friedel in like the 6th inning, ends up playing half the game. I never really understood like the whole day off, and then you end up playing half the game. Like that kind of feels like it does kind of negate a lot of that. But I did feel like TJ Friedel probably needed a day off, and again, you're picking your spots. Today was probably the best day to give him a day off. But I don't know. I'm not abandoning on the platoon overall. I think they've done it all year. I think it's helped. I want to ask you though, if Ellie's not playing, who's the best third baseman on this team? I was trying to think about this throughout the game. Who is? I think it's still Senzel, as awful as he looked tonight.
It can't be Senzel here moving forward. It just can't.
Because who is?
The brain thing from here on out, I'm not trusting it. I can't trust it because at any moment that goes away. And the other thing I would say, and you might kill me for saying this, I would say it's a toss-up between CES and perhaps maybe Newman. You don't need as much range at third base. You don't. And that's one thing about Kevin Newman that I think he's trash. He's garbage. He is. Kevin Newman is better at third base than he is at second base. He doesn't have to go as far. He's not asked to go as far. Balls that are hit to third base are usually hit a lot harder. You don't have as much reaction time. You either make the play or you don't make the play. I know people are laughing at me because it's like, oh, what do you believe in Kevin Newman? I think Kevin Newman is an absolute garbage middle infielder. Garbage. With a capital G, a capital A, a capital R, you get the point. He's garbage in the middle infield. He is. And the fact of the matter is, to sit here and say that guy should play shortstop or could play shortstop ever again in the major leagues is a joke. So we stick him at second base. I just can't watch it anymore. So yeah, I'd say maybe he could play third base. CES, maybe.
Problem with CES is he hasn't played third base in a long time.
And neither has Senzel. And neither has Senzel, really. I mean, that's like, here's my question to you, Nick. What's the sample size? In the last 2 years, how many games has Senzel played at third base versus CES?
I mean, I'm sure it's a lot more for CES, but this year, I mean, Senzel. And look, I think you might have a point that maybe the Reds put a little too much faith in Nick Senzel's ability to play third base. Because I think part of the reason for the Reds completely taking CES off of third base, because he didn't play third base hardly at all his last like 2 or 3 weeks in the minors. They pretty much exclusively played him at first base, was, I think, because they felt comfortable with Senzel as their backup. But yeah, wouldn't you be putting CS in a tough spot, though?
It's not about putting people in tough spots, in my opinion. They're Major League Baseball players. They got to figure it out. You're either valuable at a position or you're not. And if CES isn't comfortable there or he's nervous there, then I'd like to find that out, I guess. Or we could at least give it a shot. We didn't know what we were getting from 80% of this lineup, and we're figuring it out. Williamson would have never been in the major leagues if we sat here and we expected to see great things from everybody before we put him at a position. So I'm not trying to overreact. I'm trying to be as rational as one could possibly be, but also be realistic in what I see. I can't trust Nick Senzel to play third base again. I can't. I know that sounds overreactionary when I say that, but it's like he has a mental hurdle that he has to overcome, and he's not going to get enough opportunities, I think, to overcome that hurdle until he plays in another, relatively meaningful spot, I guess. I don't know. I mean, how many times are these guys going to play together ever again? Are we just overreacting? Are these guys going to be in the... Let me ask you a quick question. Genuinely, what's the over-under on Stuart Fairchild, Nick Senzel, and Kevin Newman playing in the same baseball game again? 1.5?
They'll be on the lineup together on Friday night. Maybe not in the same positions.
I mean, are we sure though? I just don't know. I could be completely off base here. I'm not sure about that. But beside the point, I don't know if I should make a big deal out of something I don't think is going to happen all that often anymore. Can I bring up something that I think is a little, maybe is a little hot takey, a little fanboy, a little overreactionary? What's Jose Barrero's splits against left-handers?
I think he was a guy that was actually honestly pretty even. I don't think he had drastic.
Okay. Well, all I'm getting at is that if I'm going to have someone deficient in a lot of things, like in my opinion, Kevin Newman's deficient in an okay amount of things, except maybe you could say he hits left-handed pitching a little bit better than the average person, Major League Baseball player. I'd at least like to have somebody that is an elite at something. And you know what? If Jose Barrero has to come up and play second base while Jonathan India's hurt and we have a hole there, maybe I'm overreacting, but God bless it. If it means that I don't have to watch Kevin Newman play there one more time, I'll take it. But again, that's probably a little oversight. I've seen this a couple times, Nick. I know what both of our answers are going to be. What's Marte doing? I'm not willing to go there yet. I'm just not. Are you?
I trust Jack too. Jack didn't think he was ready. Didn't think Connor Phillips was ready either. The next guy that I'm sure is going to come up. So that's where I'm kind of torn. I mean, I trust a guy like Jack that's been at these games, that's watched these players, that's been around them, saying that he doesn't think that they're ready at this moment. I think the Reds have been pretty aggressive with players this year. So
yeah.
Barrero's he's been worse against lefties. He's been better most of his career against right-handed batters, right-handed pitchers. So he's not going to. And Barrero's cooled off at Louisville. He was on fire. Now he's kind of back to Jose Barrero. Yeah.
Okay.
I do think Kevin Newman looked pretty good tonight, though. I know I've never played baseball at a high level. I watched that one play that you were crushing him on. I watched it like
I'm so
7
mad at
times.
Kevin Newman.
I hit rewind. I was watching. I'm like, I don't think anyone gets to this ball. I don't know.
You might be right a little bit, but I'm telling you, Nick.
I think you guys are looking for it. I think you want him. You want to see it. I think you see what you want to see a little bit.
I don't know if I do. I just don't.
Last night, which was really bad.
I don't know if I do, Nick. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am blind. Maybe I am naive. Everybody thinks that their kid's the best at whatever they do. Maybe it's the opposite of that with me and Kevin Newman. I think he's garbage. I think he gets late reads. I think he's slow. I think his feet look like concrete. I will tell you this, and this may make me sound ignorant. This may maybe make me sound like I'm egotistic, and I hope that those things that you would realize that that's not where this comes from. I swear on my life that the ball that he had to dive on tonight, he dove, he caught the ball, he jumped up, he threw, he couldn't get the guy out. The guy beat the throw when he was at second base. That play. I swear on my life, you put me in the same position that Kevin Newman was in the same ball that was hit. I swear on my life that I'm not saying I get the guy out, but I guarantee that I don't have to dive to pick that ball up. Guarantee it. And again, Kevin Newman is a 10,000-time baseball player than I ever was. I'm not saying that. He can hit way better than I could hit. Hell, I could barely ever hit. But my point is that when I come to expect a Major League Baseball player and I'm watching it, I should never, and I don't do this with Matt McClain ever, by the way. I've never watched Matt McClain take one ground ball and think to myself, I think I could have made that play. I think I could have got to that. I've not watched Ellie make one play in his life and thought to myself, I think I might have been able to play that. I watch Kevin Newman play second base and I think to myself, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm watching this ball, I'm watching the replay, and I just don't know how you make it look that hard. And I do want to admit to you, Nick, I'm not trying to sound crazy. I think that the play that he made where he backhanded it coming in was a good play. I don't think it was as good as the Cowboy made it sound to be. And I don't know what the Cowboy's doing up in the press box, because he's also, I want to remind everybody, when Cowboys oohing and ahhing over Kevin Newman making plays at second, he also, let's not forget, told you in the first inning that Nick Senzel's the best third baseman that the Reds have, and it's not even close. All right. That's all I got for today.
All right. Lively to the IL. Let's go to a more fun topic.
Do you I don't want to. Am I being too? Am I too big of a conspiracy theory to think that all these things are just being told to guys? No.
Yeah, I think that's a little conspiracy theory.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. Is it a big deal, Nick? Is it a big deal? I don't know. Is it a huge deal? I don't know if it's a huge deal. Do you think Connor Phillips is going to take his spot? I think that's what everybody wants to know.
I don't know. I'm torn on it. I mean, I kind of like, obviously he has the highest upside of anyone you could bring up, but I trust Jack, and you look back through, he walked 5 batters in his last start. Are you bringing up a guy that's command's not ready for the show, and you're setting him up for failure in a really, really tough spot? I mean, the other thing to consider is that the next start will be against the Nationals, so that's kind of a good team to face, but I don't know. I'm kind of torn on that. Ben Lively, though, I mean, what I will say is Lively's been incredible this year. Like, let's not forget. Like, I don't want to gloss over the fact that he's been really, really good and held a rotation spot that the Reds desperately needed. But he's also kind of had this weird season where he started off so well, and then if you remember when he went on the IL, he got rocked his last 4 or 5 starts before that. Came back off the IL. When he came back off the IL, it's kind of yeah, he's back. I really don't expect it. Then he railed off those 4 or 5 great starts in a row. So I have no idea what you would even expect from Lively to end the year. I think he's such an unknown at this point. I don't know if it's a huge loss or not.
Right.
It's kind of where I'm at. I really don't know.
That's I think that's an excellent point you make, because the other thing that I would say is unfair to everyone yelling and screaming about the trade deadline stuff too, in the same breath, is you don't know what you're getting from these middle of the road, back in number 4, number 5 type guys. You really don't know what you're gonna get. It's like a box of chocolates in Forrest Gump. Lively could have gone out and been a 3.5 ERA for the rest of the year kind of guy. He could also have been a 9 ERA guy, and nobody wants him. All right? Every single player, and I say player, I should say pitcher, that was on the deadline outside of Verlander, Nick, I mean, are you gonna let me ask you, would you be willing to bet your mortgage payment that whoever it is outside of Verlander is going to have a better than 5 ERA the rest of the year with their new team?
Well, Lucas Giolito's going to have a hard time getting that up after his 9 earned runs he allowed today.
Yeah, so that's the funny thing about me. I am on one side of the track where I'm screaming and yelling that he's out here starting these platoon guys 2 days in a row. But in the same breath, I'm on the other side of saying Nick Krall's still great at his job. It's okay that we didn't go out and try to get a bunch of guys, because at the end of the day, Nick, I'm with you. I don't know what we're getting from a lot of these guys. I don't know.
So someone to bring up with the chat, I think it's a good point. Dallas Keuchel did just opt out. And look, I think that his ERA is incredibly deceiving. I've seen a lot of people bring that up, but that's okay. We don't need him to have a 0.54 ERA or whatever it was. We need him to have a 5 ERA, right? And could he do that? Maybe. I think he might be worth a shot. So I think that could be an option. Levi Stout also could come back up. I know he hasn't looked really good, but he is a guy that does have some he has a couple quality pitches that I think he could fool a couple teams for a couple games, and that's really, if we're being honest here, that's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah.
We're almost looking for who can come up and fool a team for a couple games until Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo are back.
Yeah.
Are
you a little disappointed that this bullpen didn't get any help, though? I mean, we got one guy.
Yeah, I would have liked another bullpen arm, for sure.
Yeah, and that I guess if you were to say, hey, what are you the most disappointed with Krall and maybe the front office is like, I wasn't so much trying to latch on to these starting pitchers because I just didn't think that there was that they're just, I don't know. It seemed like there was a bunch of Honda Accords available when we were trying to win the drag race on Main Street. You know what I'm saying? I just because we're getting a Honda Accord, yeah, it's maybe a little bit better than this Pinto we've been driving around, but it's not good enough to ultimately get us where we need to go regardless. The relief pitching I did think was different, though. I feel like this bullpen has been taxed a lot, and I concern myself over what that looks like here towards the end of the year.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, you could see, and you could send Duarte and Cruz down to AAA, have them as, they have options. You bring in another guy, and you've kind of you filled your depth a little bit more. I'm sure that some of these other guys, that are coming back, Antone, Gutierrez. My guess is if they were being completely honest, it was more of a situation where, yeah, we could use an upgrade, but we don't want to give up a prospect for someone that honestly in 2 weeks we might go, well, we're gonna have to DFA someone, right, to make room for everyone. And I think that's probably what it came down to. But then we'll talk about Antone in a second. He did a scoreless inning tonight at the AAA level. This isn't in the Arizona Complex League. This is at the AAA level, so he could be back soon. Gutierrez is joining Hunter Green on Saturday. I guess Green's starting, then Gutierrez is coming in after him. Gutierrez is going to be used as a reliever. So, I mean, that's two guys that are at AAA that could be back in the next couple weeks that I think could be almost as good as most guys that you're probably looking at, right?
I agree. I don't. Yeah, that's fair. The only argument I'd make is those guys. All of those guys are coming back from an injury. All of them.
Yeah.
The guys that you could pick up from a deadline perspective could be having above average. And again, I'm not saying there's more Buck Farmers out there because I was the guy that said that you should trade Buck Farmer. I would much rather have a guy like Sam Maul who's had an above average year based off of his statistical nature throughout his career, coming over in a trade and trying to continue that success and having maybe one or two more of those types of guys than to beg on an Antone to be consistently good at the major league level in meaningful baseball when the guy's coming back from 2 TJs and you don't know what you're going to get. And you got Legumina who's coming back, and you got Vladdy who's coming back. And it all sounds well and good on paper, but until it's actually in an actual game in a meaningful situation, we don't know what we get. We have no idea. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe it'll go the right way, but I'm always gonna lend myself, Nick, to wanting a guy that's been doing it all year as opposed to a guy coming back from an injury.
Well, and let's hope that the front office has a pretty good pulse on what those guys are looking like in Arizona, because they know far more than we do, and they could be completely full of it and fooling themselves, or maybe they actually do legitimately say, hey, all the reports we're getting, hey, Vlad Gutierrez, his velocity's up 2 miles an hour as we're using him as a reliever. And I thought that Zach Fries did a really great job on off the bench today filling in. One point that he brought up that I really, really liked was talked about Hunter Green, how Hunter Green, after he came back off the IL last year, was better. So some of these guys, like Sam Maul has been great all year, but he's also thrown 40-plus innings. Vlad Gutierrez, Hunter Green, they're a little fresher. And how much is that worth? I don't know, but that could also have a positive effect. So we'll just have to kind of see, I guess, what they look like when they kind of come back.
No, that's an excellent counterpoint. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that's why they play the games. As a reminder, I do want to tell everybody that's been pissed off, frustrated, ready to drive off the car off the proverbial cliff. This Reds team can fight and claw and find a way to win tomorrow. It looks great. Everything else looks great. Got the Nationals coming to town with, I'd argue, the good side of our starting pitching. If they don't win tomorrow, though, boy, it's not going to go well, at least on social media, so stay off of it if you're looking to stay positive. Want some Reds MILB?
Let's do it. Let's do it. And then I got one more hot take. Since I'm already getting roasted, I'm just going to bring it. I'm bringing it tonight. I'm not holding back. All right. Little Bats, they won 5-4 over Omaha. The Bats had a walk-off hit by pitch. They improved to 55-47 on the season. Bats are 3.5 back in the West Division of the International League. Not a whole lot going on in this one. Marty 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts tonight. But TJ Antone did pitch a scoreless inning, 1 strikeout. Velocity was down a little bit from what we saw before. Not sure if that was expected or not. Also was not throwing his curveball. I think it was all sinker sweepers. But nonetheless, pitched a scoreless inning at the AAA level. That's really good to see. AA Chattanooga, they got blasted by Tennessee. Of course, that's the Cubs affiliate. They lost 13-4. Lookouts already clinched a playoff spot with their first half championship, but they're 51-46 on the season. Julian Aguilar, it's been a little bit more of a struggle for him after the promotion from high A. Gave up 4 runs, walked 4 batters over 4 2/3 innings. Not a whole lot good on the offensive side of the ball for the Lookouts. Dayton Dragons, they are on fire. They've won 10 of 11. They won 4-1 tonight. They've improved to 52-46 in the season. And the Dragons now have a 1-game lead in the East Division of the Midwest League. The Dragons look to get back to the playoffs. I don't think they've been to the playoffs in a long, long time. Edwin Arroyo was 1 for 4. Austin Callahan had a big night, 3 for 4 with a pair of doubles. And then the Tortugas, they won 6-1 over St. Lucie, 42-53 on the season. Collier was 1 for 2 with a walk. Hector Rodriguez had a big night, 2 for 4, stole 2 bases. He's got 13 stolen bases on the year.
Nice job, as always. Reds MILB presented by Betfred Sportsbook. I don't know, man. Super chats. Let's do them. We really do appreciate you guys doing super chats, and we appreciate the fact that there's 300 plus people in here on a night that's absolutely disgusting. What a gross, disgusting display of hardball that we got to see the last 2 nights. But you guys are here nonetheless. Like I said before, I said weddings to begin the show. I'm going to reiterate this. I know for a fact, based off of percentages and statistics in the United States of America, that this chat is more loyal than marriages. Most marriages, maybe half the marriages. I think I'm going to end right there. I'm going to say half the marriages. King Critical 27 says the Three Stooges experiments need to stop. Oh, man. Thank you for that first super chat, by the way. Carlton Van Hoy says Bell has been bad. This series is exposing it. Well, Carlton, I agree. I agree that he's had a bad night. It's just like anything else. You can't say one bad night, should wash over an entire year where he's managing a baseball team that's in first place when they were supposed to win 65 games, according to the experts, based off their talent level, and they're going to exceed that. 1 and 2, they are still in first place. I can. What's the word I'm looking for, Carlton? I can appreciate the candor, and I can also appreciate the passion, I guess is the term I'm looking for here, for wanting to watch a winning baseball team. Sometimes I think that is similar to me screaming and yelling at my kids because I'm so frustrated about 10 other things that are going on in my life, and they also can't listen either, so I take it out on them. I think that's part of it there. I'm just saying. I don't know if Bell deserves all that heat. And Little Tuck Truckin' says, I'm dying for Toxic Trace rant right now. Truckin', you might be just a little late for that. I don't know if I got too crazy Toxic Trace rant going, but it was probably around the middle of the show if you're looking for it. So thank you to the super chats.
Go back to yesterday if you really want a banger. One thing I should point out, and I think I've definitely given my affinity to Nick Krall, but if you really want to complain about Stuart Fairchild, Nick Senzel, and Kevin Newman playing, Nick Krall probably has a bigger part of that than David Bell. Like, Nick Krall has a lot to say about who's playing and who's playing where in the front office. It's not David Bell just doesn't. Nick Krall just doesn't throw these guys and say, "Here, David, this is what. Do whatever you want with them." Like, they're telling them this is our plan. So it's Nick Krall's just as involved in that as David Bell, if not more.
He's not filling out the lineup card.
But you're specifically putting these players on the team to platoon.
That's fair, but
it's like you're giving these players with instructions. Like, they come with an instruction manual. Stuart Fairchild is your platoon player. Nick Senzel is your platoon player. We're playing him at third base. We're playing him here. Krall is the front office in today's baseball is pretty involved in these day-to-day. I know they don't get into like the super minute stuff, and they're not gonna. I think a lot of clubs vary in how much they micromanage versus not. You can look up Joel Madden at the Angels. Joel Madden, whatever his name is.
Right.
He got really upset about how much he was micromanaged. So I think there's varying degrees of that, but I think Nick Krall in the front office has a big part of the way this is. So if you want to be critical, honestly, I think you probably should have just as much criticism for Nick Krall as David Bell.
I don't see that. I hear you. I think you're over. Sometimes I'm hesitant to use these analogies because I think that sometimes they miss, and sometimes they're terrible, and sometimes they're okay. But basically, what you're saying is that my wife bought ice cream. It's up in the refrigerator. Like, if I can eat the ice cream sparingly, and it's okay, Nick. If I go upstairs right now and I eat the whole pint of ice cream tonight and I get sick, I can't scream and yell at my wife because she put it in there. Like, okay, Nick Krall, yeah, maybe he had a little bit to do with the fact that those three guys are in the dugout. But damn it, don't tell me that David Bell has to play him 2 nights in a row, basically. He does not have to put Kevin Newman at second base 2 nights in a row because Mr. Nick Krall put him on the team and he's been here all year, and by golly, he better go there. I don't believe that for a second. Now, respectfully, I agree with you in regards to the fact that he can't have a little influence. That's as far as I'm going to go. But I would never in a million years say it's Nick Krall's fault more than David Bell's fault for him playing in the lineup 2 days in a row.
I do think they were expected to be in the lineup both nights. I think that David Bell, where they played, had the say in that.
It's fair. Okay. I mean, I don't. I think that it's, what's the right word to use here? I think it's one of those situations where I'm okay with agreeing to disagree on this because I don't think that it's that big of a deal, but I'm never going to concede the fact that David Bell doesn't have full-fledged decision-making power on what goes on in that dugout on any given night. I guess the question would be like, here's where the last thing with this is where like the whole analytics stuff and the split stuff and all this stuff, it makes my head hurt a little bit. How can you defend it on one side, but then on the other side, when it works out against your favor, then you can't admit to like, oh, well, shit, that doesn't make sense. So like, I agree with what you're saying, but when Joey Votto hits 2 home runs tonight, who told David Bell to put him in the lineup with the splits that he has against lefties? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
I don't think that was a good decision. I think it worked out tonight.
Okay. Well, so
I don't think that everything that happens on a baseball game is for sure. I think things happen, you know.
But can you at least admit though, like, this is where the analytical crowd loses me a little bit. Can you at least admit, or not you maybe, but can the analytical crowd admit that when you're playing in front of 40,000 people in a pennant race, that Joey Votto, who's had a hell of a career, based off of whatever splits you want to pull out of your ass and tell me he's not good at, might be better than Kevin Newman or Stuart Fairchild just because they hit 70, 80, 90 points better over the course of maybe a 2 or 3 year window? Again, I'm not disagreeing at it from a macro level, but from a micro level, from just like, hey, this is a big series, things are going sour. And again, maybe one game is too strong of a statement, so I'll back off that statement a little bit. But I'm just telling you, if we're in a 3 and 4 game losing streak and another team's playing a lefty and TJ Friedel's not playing in the baseball game, I got a problem with that. That's all.
I agree. I think TJ Friedel should be playing every day. I think today was an off day. I don't think it was he played yesterday against the lefty. I think probably the reason Joey Votto was in the lineup today was because of an off day for Elly De La Cruz. I think if you had a playoff game, I think if this was a playoff game, I don't think Joey Votto would have been in the lineup tonight. I think Elly De La Cruz would have been in the lineup tonight. I think probably TJ Friedel's in the lineup. I think Will Benson's out of the lineup and Fairchild's in the lineup. And right.
If this was a playoff game, do you think that Nick Senzel's playing in this baseball game?
Yes.
Do you think Kevin Newman's playing in this baseball game?
Yes. If it was against a lefty.
Tonight. I'm just curious. Tonight is Game 7 of the NLCS. You got to get to the World Series. Game 7 of the NLCS. Everything stays the same. Smiley's pitching. We're in Wrigley Field. And here we go. Senzel's playing in the baseball game. Stuart Fairchild's playing in the baseball game, and Kevin Newman's playing in the baseball game, and you're telling me that Joey Votto sits.
Yes.
Well, that's
Votto's
that's fair. I'll agree to disagree on that. I'll agree to disagree on that theory of thought. I do respect the fact that that type of crowd sticks to their guns and says, no, this is it. This is what it is. I just tell you, at least in my opinion, that in a little bit of different situations call for different things. And in my opinion, that things that happen on a baseball field sometimes happen because of things that are outside of statistical and or mathematical equation control. Because Joey Votto's a veteran, he's played a long time. He might have a better approach to the plate than Stuart Fairchild, who's going to be basically pissing down his leg when a fly ball's hit to him and there's 45,000 fans screaming down his name, and he can't get back far enough to catch a fly ball, and he drops it. Next thing you know, it's all hell is breaking loose. Like,
I'll push back. I think Joey Votto, maybe they would say, hey, it's your career, whatever. I think he would, but there's no way Jake Fraley's playing. Jake Fraley's not playing in a playoff game against a left-handed pitcher as a starter.
And
Do you agree with that?
I'm okay with that.
Fairchild's over him. And then who else? Who else is in our lineup that's I don't think Benson. I don't think Benson is either. And so that's another spot. So maybe one of those three of Newman, Senzel, Fairchild's out, and they give it to Votto.
What point does defense matter to you, though? Like, from the analytical crowd, I guess they're just going to always point back and say, well, and you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say that I think the defensive metrics that all of these people tell me about and are using, I think they're dog shit. I think, based off of what I see, if Kevin Newman is an above average or average defender, I'll call it how I see it. I think they're terrible. I think they're garbage. And you know what? Everybody wants to make fun of me. Oh, you got your head in the sand. I will say this. I've not done enough research on my end from the analytic perspective, so I will admit that I will come back to the table, Nick, and I will say I'm wrong, because at the end of this offseason, when I have a little bit more time, I'm going to bury my head in the sand of these analytics and try to figure out the minute details of exactly what everything is. I want to know the root reason of what expected batting average is. I want to know the real metric as to what it is, not just what I'm told it is. I want to know the real statistical nature of how we get to that proportion. But my main point to this whole debate is, if defense has to be just as superior and just as a premium as this offensive analytic crowd, because I'm telling you, tonight, Stuart Fairchild could have hit a 3-run home run, and at best, he would have saved just what he caused in center field on one play, misplaying in center field on a routine fly ball. And routine's a strong term. He should have caught the ball, but I'm with you. It wasn't like a super simple catch. But I think TJ Friedel makes the play. I think an average to an above average center fielder who plays every day makes that play.
I agree very much defense matters. I feel like I preach that a lot.
No, yeah.
Who's a better center fielder if TJ Friedel's not starting than Stuart Fairchild? Everyone's complaining about Will Benson's defense.
Oh, no, it's not good. But
Jake Fraley can't play center field. Who plays center field? Nick Senzel?
I guess the question is why is TJ Friedel not playing? Is it just because he needed a day off, or is it literally because he's a left-hander?
He needed a day off. That's why.
He needed that. How does he need a day off? I mean, honestly.
They're on an 11-game road trip. I think they're trying to keep these guys fresh.
Maybe so. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I feel like a boomer a little bit right now. Like how old is TJ Friedel? How many Major League Baseball games has the kid even played? Like, I'm curious. This year, how many games has he even played?
I don't know. Didn't he crash on the wall yesterday also? Didn't that happen? So I don't think TJ Friedel playing was a platoon thing at all. I think that had
if he needed the day off, if he needed the day off, Nick, then give him the damn day off. How about that? Don't bring him in the 6th inning.
I agree. I said earlier I thought that was weird. I think that was weird.
Fair.
But I don't think him playing because he's played most of the games against left-handed pitching. But I'll push back. I'll say I think Stuart Fairchild's the second best defensive outfielder on this team. So I'm not saying
okay.
He misplayed that ball,
agree.
But
I agree, Nick. But I agree. But I don't want to keep putting guys out there that might be the second best defensive player if they only play like 2 times in 3 months. Stuart Fairchild, when's the last time he even played on a regular basis at all at the major league level? Months. I'm not putting guys out there. I'm frustrated. I think at the end of the day, I do very much value your perspective. I think this is why this show is actually relatively decent. I call it a dumb show. I think it's a decent show because we have 2 guys on here who have relatively ideological viewpoints of this game in a little bit of a different manner. I respect the way that you think and you respect the way that I think, but my main point is that I'm not riding and dying with a guy that's played in AAA the last 2 months and only gets 1 or 2 starts, and then I'm sticking him in the most difficult position to play in the outfield. And I guess that's part of the depth issue that I have with this team. Maybe, or perhaps, newsflash, just a thought, maybe Stuart Fairchild should have never left in the first place. That's my argument. Let's keep running Newman out there. And, I mean, I know Casale's hurt, but when he's back, when he's back from whatever he had, his foot problem, he'll be back on the bench. But that's beside the point. We're going to go down a rabbit hole that we'll never get out of. And we're all frustrated. I get that. But golly day, I feel like it should frustrate you a little bit that the guys who might be the deciding factor of why this team may or may not make the postseason, and again, that's laugh out loud funny take a little bit, but like are guys that shouldn't even maybe argue be on the team. You got 3 guys on let me just say this. This is the final thought I have, and I'm going to shut the hell up. I've been talking for like 30 minutes. I gave you a proposal that if this was Game 7 of the NLCS, 1 game away to get to the World Series, you gave me 3 guys that I honest to God believe, arguably don't belong on a major league roster. And you said they would be starting for this team. That makes me question how good this team actually really is.
I think that those guys have helped the Reds get to this point. I don't know. I mean,
so did Jason Vossler.
No, he didn't.
All right.
Nick Senzel okay, you're firing me up. You did it. Nick Senzel came in tonight with a freaking 967 OPS against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
Kevin Newman had a 907 OPS against left-handed pitching. Like, those aren't after 5 at-bats. Newman, that's 100 at-bats. Senzel, that's 80 at-bats. Fairchild was 750. And I think he's a good defender. I think he had a bad night. I think he made one bad play. I think he's the second best outfielder on this team. Jake Fraley has never hit lefties in his whole life. Will Benson's never really hit lefties in his whole life. Joey Votto did tonight. Joey Votto also had an error. Jake Fraley had an error tonight. But those guys get their errors excused because they're not platoon players. They're not platoon players, so their errors are excused because they're not platoon players.
So
Senzel and Kevin Newman have crushed lefties all year, and that's a reason the Reds are in first place right now.
That's fair. I think they're defensive liabilities, but the statisticals, the analytic statistics, I guess, are going to tell me that they're not. And that's where we just fundamentally will never agree.
I think there's a lot of guys that are defensive liabilities on this team. And I think that's eventually it's going to be solved because it's going to be Marte, Ellie, and McLean, and the rest of the defense is going to flow around that beautifully, I think.
The air on Fraley is a really difficult air. That's where all airs aren't the same. So Fraley is sprinting as hard as he can to his left. I mean, he's just dead nut gunning it on a hard hit ball that's going down the line. He barely has time to barely get his glove down, but somehow from a scorekeeper's perspective, these guys that know so much about the game and they can score the game, if he would have just missed the ball completely, didn't touch the ball at all, or had, I don't know, maybe had concrete feet and couldn't even get to the ball, and the ball rolls all the way to the wall, it's not an error because he's got concrete feet and he can't run fast, so he doesn't get an error. But the other night, when a ball's hit 2 feet to a guy's right, the guy's standing like this, and the ball's literally right here, and he goes, it's not an error. So you tell me how you watch a baseball game and you somehow statistically can tell me, oh my God, one guy made an error, he sucks. This guy didn't make an error, he doesn't suck. I watched the game and Kevin Newman can't move more than 2 feet to his right or left, and somehow Fraley's sprinting 100 yards to his left, barely gets his glove on it, and somehow he gets an error. I lost. I'm lost. You'll never get me. I can't figure that one out. The scorekeeper that keeps games at Wrigley Field, if that's really what he did, he gave Jake Fraley an error on that, he should be, or she should be, ashamed of themselves. They should get rid of their job. I wouldn't even show back up at Wrigley Field if I was that scorekeeper because I'd be embarrassed. I digress. Who, what, when, where, and why?
Reds Cubs, Thursday, 8:05 p.m. Reds going for a series split. It'll be Jamison Talion for the Cubs. Tough year for him, 5-6, 5.46 ERA. But over his last 4 starts, he's got a 1.78 ERA. Only allowed 1 home run in his last 25 innings pitched. Has struggled at Wrigley this year, though. 6.5 ERA at home. Much better ERA on the road. For the Reds, it'll be Luke Weaver. Coming in, one of his better starts of the year at Dodger Stadium. 6 innings, 1 earned run allowed. 2 home runs, though, both to Max Muncy. If you're looking for something in Weaver, he has been better on the road this year. He's got an ERA of 5.76 on the road versus an ERA well above 8 at home.
All right, I muted myself. My family's probably awake. They're probably going to be pissed off. My wife's probably checking the score on her phone right now in bed. It looks 16-6, and she's like, What is he yelling for? What's the point? I also want to say, Kevin Newman could have made every play in the world tonight, and the Reds probably still would have lost. Nick Senzel could have maybe made every play in the world, and they could have possibly still lost. Stuart Fairchild, maybe he could have caught this ball in center field, and the Reds might have still lost. But I know one thing. When none of them can catch it, they definitely can't win, and that's the problem. But that's here nor there. They play tomorrow, Nick.
I hope you guys are entertained. It's not a bit. It's really not a bit. It's not intentional. I nor Nick come into these shows thinking, oh, let's drum something up. Let's do something crazy. I am who I am. I'm unapologetic about the fact that I believe what I believe. I think that Nick, in the way the way he views things, is very much more intelligent sometimes than the way that I view him, and I respect the hell out of that. There's just times where I wonder if we get lost in all this and we just stare at something and we forget what the hell's going on out there, and that's kind of where I'm at. I just, I'll be better. I'm gonna go to sleep. I'll wake up tomorrow. Please don't send me hate mail. All right, I don't need that in the morning. I really don't. I don't want to hear people coming into my DMs telling me how big of an idiot I am, screaming and yelling about this, that, and the other, and then they're going to give me some metrics and they're going to give me some reason or rationale as to why I'm wrong and you're right. And you know what? I'll just concede right now and just tell you, you're right. Don't send me the mail. But the Cubs do play tomorrow, and you know what I hope? I hope the Reds play tomorrow too. That would be nice. Do you think the Reds are going to play tomorrow, Nick?
I think they're going to play tomorrow. I think Luke Weaver's going to pitch well. You know what? I've got it all night. I think Luke Weaver's going to pitch well. I think he's got a good run in him. Let's go.
Yeah, you know what? I want to say this. I'm going to be in unison with you on that. For as much as people think that we probably dislike each other at times, I can't tell you that I wouldn't do the show with anyone else, one. Two, I think that Nick is the smartest Reds baseball guy there is. I'm not just saying that because he's here. I genuinely mean that. The only thing is that at some point, I'd like to think that we can all agree Kevin Newman sucks at baseball. And if we could ever get to that point, I think we could all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and have world peace. That's, of course, that's no disrespect to Kevin.
Can we just DH him? Split the difference?
Dude, I'd be perfectly fine with DH him. If that's what it takes to solve world peace, I'd be willing to do it. You know, like I'm willing to meet in the middle here. I'm not saying he needs to get cut. I mean, not a bad idea, but I'm just, I'd be willing to DH him. And then after that, maybe he plays once every 2 weeks. Maybe. I like how Kevin Newman is now in the chat. Kevin, I got some advice for you, brother. Get some new insoles for your cleats. Go away from metal spikes to rubber spikes. They're a lot lighter. You can be quicker on your feet. And the last thing I would tell you is get in the box next time to make sure that you can get in there quick enough. I know you haven't got a lot of ABs lately, but you got to get in there and make sure you're ready by 8 seconds so you don't get a strike on you. Outside of that, you would think that Kevin Newman would tear it up based off of what I've said about him. I can't tell you this. You know what he has done, and I'm going to get off this show. I promise it's the final thing I'm going to say. I'm going to mute myself. You're going to end the show, Nick. Kevin Newman has done it. He's done the impossible. He has made me go to bed tonight looking up when Jonathan India gets back from the IL. I can't wait to see Jonathan India play second base again. I can't wait to see Jonathan India play second base again. I can't wait to see Jonathan India play second base again.
Clip it. Clip it. Clip it. Let's wrap this shit up. Love you, Trace.
I told you it was the last thing I'm going to say. Cue the outro. Nick, take us home.
Oh, I gotta take us home? It's Luke Weaver night tomorrow. We're back, baby. We're going to be back better than ever.